It's Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025, seeking the death penalty for Luigi Mangione, a marathon virtue signal in the Senate, and what's going on in Florida next on the AM Update.
The people who are actually throwing the Molotov cocktails, they are the foot soldiers. Right. But we need to go after the generals, and we're going to do so.
It's another activist judge making a stupid ruling. It just doesn't make sense.
To demand the return of people unlawfully taken to El Salvador on that so-called plane full of gangbangers.
Please, God, please, God.
The only reason the censorship lie has been perpetuated is because it's politically and financially beneficial.
Why did I deserve it? Because you seem like a clown.
The Wisconsin Supreme Court election was a special kind of off-year election. A lot of people around the country, especially Republicans, were paying close attention to. Well, last night, those results came in, and they were not good. Lefty Susan Crawford defeated Trump-endorsed Brad Schimmel fairly easily, but it wasn't all bad news out of the Badger State. There was a measure on the ballot there that would enact voter ID for all elections. That passed rather convincingly. A couple of other special elections will begin in Florida with the 1st Congressional District there. Jimmy Patronis, the Republican, won his seat, as well as Randy Fine in Florida's 6th Congressional District. So, unless you're in Florida, again, Republican streaks in these off-year and special elections just continues to be more and more concerning. Now on with the rest of the news. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has ordered federal prosecutors to seek the death penalty against the man suspected of murdering United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson late last year. On Tuesday, the Department of Justice issued a press release characterizing Thompson's murder on the streets of New York City in broad daylight on December 4th as an act of political violence that posed a serious risk to the safety of others as well. The suspect in the case, 26-year-old Luigi Mangione, stalked and murdered the victim, grievous crimes that demand the gravest of penalties, the Department of Justice says. Quote, Luigi Mangione's murder of Brian Thompson, an innocent man and father of 2 young children, was a premeditated, cold-blood assassination that shocked America. After careful consideration, I, Pam Bondi, have directed federal prosecutors to seek the death penalty in this case as we carry out President Trump's agenda to stop violent crime and make America great again. The last federal execution was on January 16th of 2021, just a few days before Inauguration Day 2021. Then Attorney General Merrick Garland put a moratorium on all federal executions beginning in July of that year. Well, the lawfare won't stop. A rogue judge has ruled that the Trump administration can't fire DEI trainers at the Central Intelligence Agency. That was just one instance this week. There is also this. Another federal judge has is trying to block the Trump administration's efforts to curtail deportation protections for around 600,000 Venezuelans. Here's Tom Homan, border czar.
It's another activist judge making a stupid ruling. It just doesn't make sense. You know, I've been around since 1984, Lawrence, and TPS, temporary protected status, is never temporary. And President Trump is going to do his job by the rule of law. The law says temporary status. Once the conditions in that country they're from, once the conditions change, then people should be removed from the United States. It's only a temporary status. For instance, if there's a hurricane and it devastates a part of a country, we'll give them TPS until that country gets back on their feet. But TPS isn't meant to be decades long. So President Trump, who's promised American people, we're going to enforce the laws enacted by Congress and signed by the president. We're going to use the laws of this country to secure the border and enforce our immigration law. That's exactly what we're doing.
Border czar Tom Homan, you can hear the frustration in his voice. I know personally I'm getting more and more frustrated because every single day that ends in Y, it seems like we've got more and more activist judges telling the Trump administration what they can and can't do. There's Democrats like this as well. Jamie Raskin in the House saying we need to bring back all those gangbangers we sent to El Salvador.
While appealing whichever ones they want to appeal and to demand the return of people unlawfully taken to El Salvador on that so-called plane full of gangbangers. And I especially...
Yeah, I hope that the Democrats run on that. Yeah, let's bring back the planefuls of gangbangers we sent to that prison in El Salvador. I wonder if that's a winning issue for them. Elon Musk says he and Attorney General Pam Bondi, as well as his Tesla Corporation, have figured out who's behind all of these violent attacks on Tesla and Tesla dealerships.
This is fundamentally a case of terrorism. It's wide-scale domestic terrorism with the purpose of intimidation, and it's harming innocent people. It's really terrible. And I think what we actually have to get to are the people who are organizing and paying for these attacks and protests. That's who we really need to go after, because the people who are actually throwing the Molotov cocktails, they are the foot soldiers. Right. But we need to go after the generals, and we're going to do so. The president has made it very clear that we're going to go after those that are paying and organizing these violent attacks. And Attorney General Bondi has said the same thing. I believe that is exactly what will happen.
Do you know who they are?
We're coming for them.
Do you know who those generals are?
We know. We do.
Musk made those comments to Fox News last night. In the Senate, Senator Cory Booker, Spartacus, went on a marathon virtue signal. Now, it's being billed as a filibuster, but he wasn't really even prolonging debate or preventing votes on relevant bills or anything. He was just on the floor of the Senate making a speech. Here he is around hour 20 yesterday afternoon.
We are strong. We have changed history. We have bent the arc of the moral universe. And now is that moral moment again.
It's just stopping him right here. Again, every time I hear Cory Booker speak, I can't help but think the dude needs some Metamucil or Miralax or maybe both.
It's the moral moment again. God bless America. We need you now. God bless America. If you love her, if you love your neighbor, if you love this country, show your love. Stop them from doing what they're trying to do for almost 20 hours. We have laid out what they're trying to do, 20 hours. I want to stand more, and I will, but I'm begging people, don't let this be another normal day in America. Please, God, don't let this.
Lord. I mean, props to him. It takes a lot of stamina to be able to stand up there for 20 plus hours and screech and spill your innards about, no, I hate Trump more. No, I hate Trump more. At the end of the day, like I said, this wasn't an actual filibuster. He's not really preventing anything from happening in the Senate. It's just a very much glorified, very long virtue signal. Hey, you remember the name Nina Jankowicz? She was the person that Biden put in charge of the Office of Disinformation or some such creation back during the Biden administration. She was going to be the woman tasked with deciding what is true and fake, because what could go wrong with that? Well, she testified in front of a congressional panel recently, and she says that censorship isn't real.
Created by both the board's founding documents and my 5-hour sworn testimony before your colleagues on the Judiciary Committee, the board's mission was to protect civil rights, civil liberties, privacy, and the First Amendment, the very subject of this hearing. Many continue to lie that the board was a censorship body because it's politically useful to them. That lie was the first chapter in the tall tales about the so-called censorship industrial complex that have since emerged. They've been buoyed by the Twitter files, which falsely allege that Twitter executives were colluding with government to censor disfavored content. The Twitter files crafted almost endless fiction based on selectively edited email and text excerpts between researchers, platforms, and federal agencies. They're riddled with errors and outright falsehoods. The allegation that researchers are somehow committing acts of censorship by conducting independent research and sharing it is outlandish, and it's harmful. Research is speech, government-funded or not. The only reason the censorship lie has been perpetuated is because it's politically and financially beneficial to those who peddle it. Actions like this hearing are a dangerous distraction from the real threats we face.
That is Nina Jankowicz. She was supposed to be the head of the Office of Disinformation at your federal government if Joe Biden had his way. She led that office for all of about 5 minutes before somebody put the kibosh on it. Not sure who to thank for that. You can hear the just complete and total condescension oozing from every syllable of every word that she says. She is the shiny, happy person. She is one of the shiny, happy people. The good people, the perfect people who we can rely on in our federal government to tell fact from fiction, truth from lie, and by golly, she's upset you didn't let her have the opportunity to do just that. Thank the Lord. Joe Biden lost. Thank the Lord he's no longer in office, and Donald Trump is back at it because people like Nina are legion in Washington, D.C., and they would be running the show right now. When we come back, one of the funniest things that I've heard so far this year comes from Senator Jim Banks We go down to the state of Florida to see what's happening there between Governor Ron DeSantis and that state legislature. And one prominent model speaks up about her son's autism journey. It's coming up next. That is recording artist, rocker, Kid Rock at the White House the other day, playing the historic piano there. He showed up to the White House. Wherever you are right now listening to this, just picture Kid Rock. He showed up to the White House looking exactly like that. He was there for a signing ceremony for an executive order targeting ticket fees. That's interesting. Over back in the Senate, here is a liberal staffer at one of those government three-letter agencies who was following Senator Jim Banks around, upset that Doge cut his job. Listen to this exchange.
These are USAID workers.
Hi, I was a worker at HHS. I was fired illegally on February 14th. There are many people who are not getting social service programs, especially people with disabilities. Are you going to do anything to stop what's happening?
You probably deserved it.
I deserved it?
You probably deserved it.
I deserved it.
Dude, that's
wow.
So sad.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Why did I deserve it?
Because you seem like a clown.
Just at that moment, the elevator doors closed as Senator Jim Banks told the ex-HHS staffer, "You're acting like a clown, and that's why you deserve to be fired." That is some good, quick thinking there from Senator Jim Banks. I saw somebody comment on this story the other day saying that you should not treat civil servants like this. Well, if you're fired from the civil service, guess what? You aren't a civil servant anymore. Good for Senator Banks for just standing up to that little pissant. And now we go to the state of Florida, where their legislature, specifically the House of Representatives in that state, seemingly, are on an all-out warpath against their uber-successful and generationally talented governor, Ron DeSantis. And DeSantis, I don't need to tell you this, he's not having any of it.
The Florida House of Representatives has a Republican supermajority. And what are they spending their time doing? Well, they are hearing in a committee a bill about carbon sequestration, potentially injecting carbon into our soil, aquifer, and even our ocean floor. Carbon sequestration is a scam. It's part of climate ideology, and it should not be in law in the state of Florida. Certainly should not be the work of a Republican supermajority. There are so many things that Floridians want to see get done, everything ranging from property tax relief to voter freedom. Don't indulge the left with carbon sequestration.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis exposing what Republicans in his state legislature are trying to do, just acquiescing to the climate cult by trying to give some sweetheart deals for carbon capture programs. DeSantis says that's a non-starter, but that wasn't all. Governor DeSantis, at a press conference the other day, fielded a very slanted and poorly framed question about Casey DeSantis' Hope Florida program. Listen to the way Governor DeSantis responds.
First of all, we're not going to let you try to smear a good program with this stuff on these things. I know the House is feeding you guys stuff. We weren't born yesterday. We understand what they're trying to do.
So listen to that. So listen to that. Governor DeSantis just accused the Republican leadership in the House of Representatives in Florida of feeding left-wing media talking points to try to get gotcha questions at a press conference for Casey DeSantis' nonprofit Hope Florida program. DeSantis continues.
They're trying to kind of sully this. This is the nonprofit arm. It's a charitable arm. They're going to take care of the paperwork. But while you're worried about filing paperwork, we're worried about lifting Floridians up. We're worried about getting people on the path to self-sufficiency. We're worried about changing lives. We're not worried about trying to play phony gotcha games. So go back to the House Leadership Office, talk to their staff, let them feed you some more BS, try to recycle it. But nobody trusts you anymore. You don't have any credibility because you're always peddling the same BS.
So DeSantis simultaneously puts that reporter, that left-wing reporter, on blast, while at the same time while at the same time putting the Republican House leadership in his state on blast as well. Again, he does this every single week, it seems like, reminding America that he is the best governor in America. Because if you get in the way of an America First, or in his case, a Florida First agenda, he will not mince words, and he will not discriminate between lefties or Republicans in whom he puts on blast. Great stuff, again, from Florida Governor DeSantis. And now here's this. Actress and model Jenny McCarthy recently joined Maria Menounos in her podcast and opened up about her son's journey with autism and whether she suspects that big old V word has anything to do with it.
My son Evan, was diagnosed. Well, the first thing that happened to him, if I can get into it, was seizures. He started having seizures, and they were life-threatening seizures, like cardiac arrest.
Yeah, like I remember reading you said that in the ambulance, they had to give you the thumbs up that they brought him back at one point. Yeah. My heart sunk into my toes.
Yeah, waiting for the paramedics when he went into cardiac arrest from that seizure there's nothing worse. Can you imagine? He's 2.5 years old. He's turning blue. And I'm on the phone with 911, screaming at them to hurry up. And they can't come fast enough. And so when they come in, it's always so scary because I've had to deal with EMTs and I love them all, but they walk in slowly always. There's always a long driveway at the house I'm in, and they're walking. And I am Sally Field or Shirley MacLaine in the, Terms of Endearment movie, screaming at the nurse counter, screaming. And they came in and started CPR in the room, and then got him back, got in the ambulance. They lost him again, got him back in the ambulance. And I had so many conversations with God in that moment of bring back my boy. First, I was going to say, or I'll kill myself. That was the first thing. I'm like, do I run in traffic? Do I take a knife? Because I'm not living without my son. That was a no deal. He had to survive. So then once he did, and then I got the autism diagnosis shortly after that, I hit such a low, of course, being compounded with that, the seizures and then the autism diagnosis. I was I just remember crying so hard in the shower. One of those scenes you see in a movie where you're in so much pain, and that felt so helpless. Because I'm how did my son get diagnosed when he was a normal, typical child? He hit his milestones. He did have some little red flags of eczema, you know what I mean? Those kind of things, but no. He was smiling. He was talking.
This is all leading up to the vaccine.
Leading up to this. When I was on Oprah is when I first came out with my book, and that's really...
Many such stories. I just don't know if, no matter where you are on the spectrum, no pun intended, of always vaccine or anti-vaccine, why you can't have maximum amount of grace for mothers like you just heard, who all of them to the T say one day or 1 week I had a completely normal, typically healthy baby. And then the next week, it wasn't. Next week, this and this and this and this and this happened. And it's not just developmental milestone. They're just not just leaps. It's not just attributable to, hey, that's just a growing and changing baby. Something is fundamentally wrong with my baby. I mean, there's no person who knows a little baby, infant, newborn, toddler, better than their own mother. I don't know how anyone, no matter where you are between anti-vax and always vax, how you can't have some modicum of grace for moms like McCarthy, you just heard there. I've always said about vaccines, even before the last few years, where I've become more skeptical and even opposed to many vaccines, or even the concept in general. I've always said that if you can't look somebody in the eye and say with 100% certainty that this product won't harm them, then there needs to be at least some modicum of grace. And there's no doctor, there's no professor, there's no researcher who can look you 100% in the eye with anything, especially vaccines, which go right into the bloodstream, and say to you 100% nothing bad will happen. Because this is life. There are no guaranteed outcomes. So there has to be measures of grace when it comes to matters of conscience. And finally, our analysis, slightly acidic, mostly necessary. This is Congresswoman Brittany Peterson. She's a Democrat from the state of Colorado. She was on the floor of the House yesterday to vote against a rule, to vote against a measure that would nix her and others' plans to allow members of Congress, women who have just had children, to vote by proxy for 12 weeks.
And Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong opposition to this rule, which restricts moms and dads from doing their jobs after welcoming a new child. Like so many of our colleagues, it's one of my greatest honors to be a mom. I have 2 little boys, a son named Davis, who's 5, and my little guy here, Sam, who's now 9 weeks old.
Yeah, what you cannot see because you're listening to this is that she brought her newborn, maybe an infant son, with her to the House floor, using her infant son as basically a prop, a way of emotional manipulation to try to pass this rule, which would allow a vote on a bill that would allow members of Congress to vote by proxy if they have just had a child in the last 12 weeks, for a period of 12 weeks. No. No. You wonder why it's too hard for you, Congresswoman Pedersen. If you wonder why it's too hard, it's because you're supposed to be at home taking care of that poor child. If you cannot have a nanny, if you can't afford a nanny, then it's not the right time in your life to be a member of Congress. Congress is not a place for children or babies or for child rearing. This is where laws are made. The future of our country is supposed to be decided. But the story gets even worse. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, a Republican from Florida, actually joined in with a number of Democrats in a House rebellion, which has made it impossible for the House to do anything, including on a measure that would attempt to diminish the power of federal judges around the country from putting the kibosh on Trump's agenda. That was on the docket this week, but there was a number of individuals, some of whom are Republicans led by Anna Paulina Luna, to gum up the works in Congress this week. So none of that is going to get done. None of that's going to get done. My frustration is building right now. Number one, with the judges. The Trump administration has got to just tell them to kick rocks, to pound sand, and just follow through with their agenda that the American people empowered them to enact. Secondly, if the Trump administration isn't going to tell those judges to kick rocks, then Congress has to act. And why isn't Congress acting right now? Well, for a number of reasons, but this particular week, this specific week, it's because Anna Paulina Luna and a cadre of Democrats have decided that it's more important to argue the minutia of a rule that might or might not allow a vote to be taken on a law to allow women in Congress 12 weeks of maternity leave and voting by proxy if they have children. Those are the priorities of this Congress. I'm at the point now, I'm wondering if anything significant, good, and permanent will be accomplished in the first 2 years of the Trump administration through the U.S. Congress. And that's the topic of this week's poll of the week, which you can vote on over at Real AM Update on X. Will Congress get anything good and permanent done on trade or immigration or DOGE or taxes in Trump's first 100 days? That was the question. You can vote now over at Real AM Update. Because, folks, I'm starting to have my doubts. Well, I'm continuing to have my doubts. That's going to do it for a Wednesday. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntire, and this is the AM Update.